Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Filled with Bless show. Christ is risen.
Indeed, he is risen.
How was your Pascha, Molly?
It was wonderful. It was so nice to be there in person. And we had these two beautiful days on Saturday and Sunday where it got up to 70 here. And so when we did the procession, we weren't freezing at night. And then also, we were able on the day of to set out tables outside and to celebrate, have people come by because we could be out in our yard. And that was awesome. How about you?
Oh, that's great. Well, I made up for lost time this year because since we couldn't go to church last year, this year I celebrated with two parishes. So I was commuting back and forth to Chicago to my church there and also going to services here where I live and was able to celebrate the resurrection with both church families. So made up for lost time, and it was wonderful.
Oh, that's so great. And I'm glad you weren't driving on the roads late at night so far. It's
Yeah.
nice that you could be a little closer this year.
Yes. Did not go to Chicago for the apostasy service.
Yes. Oh, that sounds lovely. And I was going to ask you, just out of curiosity, because last time we talked, last month, we had the show, you were mentioning that you had some health things kind of clear up that allowed you to be able to participate this year in Lent and more so than you've been able to in the past. And I just was wondering how that experience was for you.
It was wonderful. Thanks for asking, Molly. I can't wait to tell you the good news. So, as you know, I think you know, I have hereditary high cholesterol, and I've had a lot of health issues throughout the years, and it's taken me a while to get to the root cause. And we're going to actually be talking about one of those root causes later on in the show. But this year's the first Lent that I've been able to fully participate in the church's guidelines for fasting. So basically a vegan diet and fast with my fellow Orthodox family. And I also stopped eating sugar about 2 weeks prior to Lent. So I had this idea that I should get a blood test on Holy Friday and just see if it moved the needle on my cholesterol. Eating a vegan diet, and very healthy vegan, obviously, all of just God's food the way He created it. And sure enough, my cholesterol, my total cholesterol came down, my LDL came down, my triglycerides came down. And this was actually better than I could have expected, even on a medication. And it just proves that eating a vegan diet for a short period of time, and I know studies say this, but it can turn your health around in as little as 3 weeks. And while I'm not an advocate of always being vegan, and I know some people, love to be and have been vegan for years, but for a short period of time, it can definitely help your body, especially if you're heading towards autoimmunity or other issues like that. Now,
Wow.
You incorporated juicing into your Lent, didn't you? And I understand you had some great surprises. So tell us about that.
Yes. So I was so inspired by, always by you. And whenever you tell me these kind of things, I'm always digesting the information and I've learned a ton. Even like what you talked about a vegan diet, one that is based on whole foods, the vegetables and the grains versus you can have a vegan diet, but have it be very processed, a
potato
lot of
chips
sugar, right. Yeah. And so like I'm constantly learning and I really enjoyed your interview with Matushka Sherry. And I had not been really familiar with juicing before that. And I was just like, oh, that makes a lot of sense. And then I went on and listened to your full length podcast with her, the Holistic Christian Life podcast, where she really even expands on her health journey. And it really kind of struck a chord with me because I was also just living with these symptoms that were really getting pretty debilitating. And mine were all from a hormonal imbalance. So it was sleep disruption, really hard time sleeping, hard time falling asleep and staying asleep. So I was constantly tired,
Yes.
and also had hot flashes all day long, night sweats. And then the most problematic were these headaches that I started getting about 2 years ago. They were migraines, which I'd never had before, but they were getting more and more severe, closer together. Yeah, and when one hits, I'm out. Like I,
Yeah,
I
you
can't,
are.
I can't work, I can't do anything. And they were getting like really excruciating. And so my last headache was on April 6th, and it was so bad. And I called, actually was crying to my mom on the phone. I'm like, I could not live like this. And I was thinking like, oh, I'm going to go get medication. It's going to have side effects. And I thought, wait a minute, like there's got to be a way. Something's wrong inside that that needs to be healed from the inside out. I don't want to just slap a band-aid on this. And so that was
Hmm.
about the time when I had listened to your interview with Matushka Sherry, and I thought, gosh, that's pretty powerful what she talked about, the power of juicing. So I added that. That next day after that migraine, I was like, I'm making some changes. I'm just going to see what I could do. So I gave up anything that was kind of triggering, like alcohol, coffee, gluten, dairy, anything processed. Again, like what you're talking about, I went with whole foods, grains, fruits and vegetables, added the juicing. So a morning juice and then like an afternoon or evening juice. I actually have my lunch juice right here. And also drink more water. And then you had even talked about like, and you have a great video we're going to share at some point about your smoothie making, where you add
Yeah,
like hemp seed and flaxseed, all things that naturally regulate your hormones. And by doing all of that for a month, including some supplements, some magnesium, some things like that, and increasing my exercise. I went in yesterday for my checkup appointment with my doctor about these very symptoms. We went over, kind of where I'd been last time I saw her, and I was able to say, everything is gone. So she's like, how's your sleep? And I'm like, I sleep amazing. I've slept better now than I have slept in years. Like, I can't remember sleeping this well. I sleep hard. I wake up feeling energized. My eyes pop open. I'm ready to go. And instead of that, like coffee spike high and then drop, I had sustained energy all day. And the hot flashes, all those things were gone, and maybe one every other day. And then also like the headaches. I have not had a sign of a headache in a month, which is such a miracle. And
yeah,
I just am so thankful. Every day I wake up feeling like so thankful for access to this kind of information, um, and these tools, to not have to just keep going and pushing through and say, no, wait a minute, there's things you can do to radically change your diet or your lifestyle that can really help you find relief.
absolutely. And it's never too late. Molly, you're 47?
40, 46. I thought I was 47. I'm
46?
46.
Sorry.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And when I started making those huge, huge changes in my life, I was 53. So it's never too late.
Amazing.
God created our bodies
No.
so beautifully with our detoxification systems and how our hormones balance. And Molly, I think that you are a perfect example of how God created our bodies to heal themselves, because you being 46 and me changing my life around at 53, it just proves that when you start treating your body right, all of God's detoxification systems and hormonal balances and everything come into play, and we can turn things around. So, really, I hope everyone is encouraged by your story. I'm sure they are.
Oh, I hope so too, because I do feel that way. I'm like, you're right. It's not too late. You can. There's so often we just sit and accept feeling off,
Mm,
feeling tired, feeling fatigued, not sleeping, and just chalk it up to like, well, that's just part of getting older.
yeah,
But it doesn't have to be like that. You don't have
no,
to just live with it. You
no,
can
you
make,
don't.
it takes and it takes effort, and it takes intention. But I think in the podcast, I think what really struck me was when Matushka Sherry talked about, she said once she had tasted vibrant health,
Yes.
you don't want to go back to where you were before. So it's a good motivation. Sometimes even when we kind of have those crises in our health, or they can be a wake-up call, to really invitation to live healthier and better.
Yeah, absolutely. And of course, we're mind, body, and soul. So I think one of the things that I know you did during Lent that we like to encourage people to do is to embrace silence and stillness, because that's when your cortisol goes down, that's when inflammation starts abating, and that's when you can also become whole spiritually.
Absolutely. I think of all the things that I've been learning, even through this ministry, just from working with you, is that this most amazed me and probably changed my life is that connection between mind, body, and spirit. So we tend to compartmentalize where you can do all your health things, you can do all of
Mm-hmm.
your eat right, but if you're living in a state of chronic stress, your body still is going to be limited in its ability to bring healing, because if you're in flight or fight mode all the time, um, your immunity kind of shuts down.
It does.
um, and when if you're in the rest and repair mode, that's when all the healing really begins. And in order to be there, we need to spiritually be at rest, mentally, emotionally, and that stillness not only allows us to surrender our own will to God's will, so we are resting in His mercy, but we are also allowing those cortisol levels to really lower and our body to come into a peaceful state that it can have a good environment for healing. So I really think incorporating that along with your diet, along with your exercise, it's just as important, that
It
stillness.
is. So, on today's show, first of all, for the Peaceful Mind segment, we are going to be talking about stillness and silence with none other than Dr. Albert Rossi, who is an expert at these things. Then, for the Healthy Body segment, we're talking to Dr. Steve Heffelfinger, and we're going to talk about root causes of unexplained illnesses, and one which I can closely relate to has tied into my health. And then for the productive life segment, we're going to have a question that I think everybody is going to relate to, right, Molly?
Absolutely. It's a good one.
Yes. So without further ado, let's go ahead and go into our Peaceful Mind segment.
So we are so thrilled and honored to have Dr. Albert Rossi with us today. Dr. Rossi is a licensed clinical psychologist and Christian educator who has spoken and written widely on these topics of stillness and of silence. Dr. Rossi was a member of the SCOBA Commission on Contemporary Social and Moral Issues for 6 years. He is currently Director of Field Education and serves as the resident clinical psychologist at St. Vladimir Seminary. He hosts the podcast Becoming a Healing Presence on Ancient Faith Radio and is the author of 2 beloved books. One is Becoming a Healing Presence, and then his most recent book, All Is Well.
Hello, Dr. Rossi, and welcome to the Filled with Love show.
Thank you, Cynthia. It really is a really great honor and a great opportunity to be here with you and Molly. Thank you.
It is so wonderful. I have had the pleasure of interviewing you several times in the past, so I just feel at home talking with you today. And I love that we're going to talk about inner stillness. And I guess I just wanted to start by asking you what stillness has to do with inner peace.
Cynthia, I think it's a really pointed, great question and the heart of the matter, because we really are called to be peaceful always, all the time. Christ, peace in us. And then the question is, okay, how do we get that? What's the connection between stillness and that? I like to use the metaphor of a lake. That is, there's a surface, a middle part to the water, and then a bottom surface where the dirt is. That's our mind, that's our awareness. And often at the surface of the lake, there is wind and turmoil and great waves. In the middle, there's a little bit of that and a little bit not. At the bottom, there's constant stability, and for our word, peace. We are called to be at that peace all the time, even when at the surface things are in upset. That said, stillness then connects us to that part of us, that peaceful, deep part of us, by allowing us not to get caught up in the other two levels. If we can be still within ourselves and aware, oh man, all these bad things are happening, but I am containing Christ, I am a temple of the Holy Spirit, and I can go forward in peace amidst turmoil. There are a lot of questions about how do we get stillness and what is it about, but the connection is stillness, I don't have good words, connects, fuses us with our own deeper, peaceful part of self.
I love that because so much can be going on, like the windy and the air. I love how you talk about a lake and waves and ripples and all kinds of stuff can be going on outside of us, but inside of us, deep down in that lake, we can still have
Yeah,
a sense of calm.
that's right. And that all that turmoil can be any old thing. I could be right in the middle of getting a ticket as I drive, or I could have a quick pain in my abdomen that's appendicitis, or a child might have just screamed having done something that's really a problem. And that then, makes our mind race and get upset. So any of life's real issues can happen, and at the same time, we can be peaceful. That's a paradox. Father Hopko often said, orthodoxy is paradoxy, but doable.
Yeah.
Mm. Yeah. That's a very powerful image of the lake.
Mm.
I love to think of things like visually like that. I actually have I keep this, I don't know, this is my screensaver on my phone. Um, but it's the icon with Peter and Jesus and that same, and whenever I start to get stressed, I look at it I think about all the waves and think, nope, just Jesus. Think about Jesus, simplify, think about Jesus. Um, and that helps me a lot as well.
Mm.
It's very liberating
Mhm.
and hard to do.
Very liberating, very simple, very, very hard to do. Mhm.
Hmm.
And it really is a lifetime task. Hey, I am 84 years old, and I really am just a beginner at this stuff. And I've been doing it for decades and decades. But I know that I'm just getting started. I know that much. Mhm. But it's wonderful. It's a wonderful adventure.
It is.
It
So,
really
when it
is.
comes to cultivating this in your life, Dr. Rossi, why don't you lead us through some ideas? Because I think a lot of people love the idea of this, but they don't know how to incorporate it.
Yes. Um, in short, we need to have a specified time every day when we are just still. That's all we're trying to do. A. B. Then through the day, we are coming back to that intermittent stillness prayer, Jesus prayer, Lord have mercy, through the day, which then is our connection with stillness. That is our stillness. So I'll say a word about the first part, and I must admit, I love to talk about it. I'll call it meditation. And I would say that in Father Hopko's 55 maxims on the internet, one of his maxims, and he wrote those for himself and then shared it with the rest of us. One of his maxims is every Christian, Orthodox and non, must meditate 20 to 30 minutes a day. Uh-oh. Now, from my point of view, who does a lot of traveling, at least before COVID, and give a lot of Zoom retreats as I did yesterday and so on, the great secret, the unknown thing in Orthodoxy is meditation. For whatever reason, if I were really to be unvarnished and candid, of all the people I've talked to and met, and particularly priests who invite me to do these parish retreats, often after a retreat, I'll go to Starbucks with a priest. We'll sit and talk. How's the parish council treating you? How's your family? And then I'll say, how is your quiet time? Oh, Dr. Rossi, it's not like it was at the seminary. Well, I know that. How was your quiet time? And 50% of the time, the answer is, I'm going to start on Monday, meaning non existent now and for the recent past. Okay, but there's a high price tag, for, a really high price tag to pay for that. So I would begin by saying, I and you and all those who will view this, also, I would say, Father Hopkins said, I will say, must meditate. Now, for those who are not doing it, I would say begin with 10 minutes and work up to 20 and 30. And the numbers aren't that important, but it is important to do it every day with a timer and to be faithful to the practice. And anyone who says to me, oh, Dr. Rossi, I don't have 10 minutes. I have too many things to do. I need to set up a soup kitchen and take care of 19,000 kids. And da, da, da. My only response is, you need to take a look at your life and find 10 minutes. Everyone has 10, 20, or 30 minutes every day. And if one can't do 20 in a chunk, then one does 10 and 10 or whatever. But we do that. The theology is meditation is intimate time with Christ. Christ and me, period. That's all. Just Christ and me. Now, my wife is dead, but when she was alive, she would not let a day go by that she didn't say, Al, sit on this couch and talk to me. I want some time for us. That's what meditation is. And that's what Christ wants of us. He wants some time with us. Now, so what do? We sit and set a timer, 10, 20, 30, whatever it is, and then get very comfortable, and then repetitively say the same short prayer over and over. What prayer? It's always to the breath. Be aware of my breath. I'm aware that I'm inhaling and exhaling. And I don't breathe. I don't consciously say I'm going to breathe. No, we do life, and breathing occurs. God breathes us, the Ruha, the breath of God puts in us. So we sit, we're aware of our breath, and on the inhale we say, maybe the first half of the Jesus prayer, Lord Jesus Christ, or Lord Jesus Christ, Son of God. And on the exhale, have mercy on me, have mercy on me, a sinner. Whatever the Spirit dictates. And we just do that repetitively and gently and over and over and over. Now, that prayer can be the Jesus prayer. It can be Lord on the inhale, have mercy on the exhale. In my own case, I say on the inhale, most holy Theotokos, save us, repetitively. I don't count how many times I say it. I do use a prayer rope, but I don't use it as a counter. I use it as an attention focuser. Then the little timer goes off and I get up. I don't assess it at all. I don't say, to myself, today was better than yesterday, or I'm starting to get someplace, or this stuff isn't working. No assessment at all. I just do it. And then I have a cup of tea. What can I expect during that time when I'm meditating? St. John Chrysostom says, St. John Chrysostom says there's a snake inside of us, an imagined snake. And if we're living life and not attentive to God, the snake is dormant. But if we begin to pray more, St. John Chrysostom says, we arouse the snake within us. Snake becomes, and that's not good news. And then he has translated a lovely phraseology. And if we continue to pray, we lay the snake low. Okay. So we expect trouble. We expect that we will do our part, say a repetitive prayer, and we will be distracted. Ta-da! What do we do with distractions? We don't engage them. We don't fight them. We just come back to the prayer. And not only distracted, we're going to be tempted. I am tempted savagely during my prayer time. And we don't, again, wrestle with the octopus. No, we just come back to our prayer and keep on going. That's the way it really is. Again, as an old man, I do my 20 minutes in the morning, 20 minutes at night. And I don't say, finally, it's doing some good. I'm becoming holy. No. I do it and then live life and become, as you two say so nicely, live simply with less, as much as I can. Now, there's a lot more to say about that process of simply doing meditation. But I'll back up and give a little backstory to that little biblical foundation. I claim, rightly or wrongly, that that's what God wants. And I will say in the Bible, that's what he says he wants. From my point of view, the most important single verse in the whole Old Testament is Exodus 14:14. And I would say to our viewers, please make a note of that, EX 14:14. And I'll go a little bit before that in the Bible. That's the Passover scene. All of the Jewish religion is built on the Passover scene. And so is Orthodoxy because it's Pascha, and Pascha is based on the Passover. Christ had his meal at the Passover. He is our Passover. Exodus 14:14, back up a little bit, Israelites in Egypt. Finally, God says to Moses, get out of here. Moses takes the Israelites. By the way, exegetes say Moses took 1/3 of the Israelites in Egypt, 2/3 stayed behind, whatever. Then we ask how many. We don't know how many, but exegetes say at least 6,000. Some say up to 60,000, whatever, big group of people. Moses takes these people into the desert. God provides manna for them, and they go a number of days' journey. Then they come to this big body of water, and it's clear they cannot get across. Just can't do it. We have old people with Alzheimer's. We have children. We have sheep. We don't have a boat. We can't. And the sequence is important. It's God's word. They then turn around and see Pharaoh and his charioteers coming on horses covered with brass, with harpoons and javelins, going to kill them. What does the Bible say? The Bible says that the Israelites got sarcastic with Moses and said to him, what? There weren't enough graves in Egypt. You brought us into the desert to die. Great drama. Great drama. Their lives, God's people are in grave danger. Yahweh then says to tell Moses, tell the people, the Egyptians whom you see today, you will never see again. I will fight for you. Then comes Exodus 14:14. You have only to be still. Ooh, God is saying, here's what I'm tell you what I want of you. You have only to be still. That's the RSV. And short version, the whole rest of the Old Testament and New is about God's people refusing to be still. Isaiah 30:15, 650 years later, says really clearly, in stillness and in trust is your salvation. And the next words are, and you would not. You won't be still. You said, no, we're going to go on our steeds, on our horses, blah, 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 blah. And so is the New Testament. And we say, I'm not going to be still. I have to go set up my food kitchen for the poor. And then I need to do all kinds of other things. But I don't have time for you and me to be still. And all I can say is that it's very dangerous.
Yeah. I think we've been lulled into thinking that we have so much control over everything, and that in order to have that control, we need to do, and think, and drive ourselves to distraction on things. And giving that back to God, to stop taking that, trying to take power away from Him, which we really can't. But leave it with Him.
Yeah. And as it says in Psalm 46, be still and know that I am God. I'll give a really quick example about how we can do really good things that may or may not, probably not, all of God's will. My daughter at Villanova spent a semester in Siena, Italy, semester abroad, stayed with a family, and you'd have to know my Beth. She's a champagne bubble. Blah, 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 blah. Everybody loves my Beth. She did her thesis on the baptistry at the Siena Cathedral. At the end of her stay, she said to the woman of the house, well, I've been here. This cathedral is beautiful and built at the same time as the cathedral in Florence, which is beautiful. They were built competitively when one church cathedral decided to increase the sanctuary, the other church increased its sacristy, and so on and so on and so on. But the competition became quite vile. There are really stories about how they competed against each other. So my daughter says, I'd like to take a bus on a Sunday afternoon just before I leave and see what the Florence Cathedral's like. The woman in the house said, Beth, if you go to Florence, don't ever come back to this house again.
Hmm.
Hatred between the towns and many people exists centuries later. Now, the only question is, do those two magnificent cathedrals totally honor and praise God? Well, we can question all that. I don't know. But according to the people who did it then and do it now, go to those cathedrals, there's very dark feelings between them. So that's my only point. We can do something really beautiful and good and not necessarily being it out of God's prompting in us if we're not listening to him first. It's always an inside out job. Yeah.
It's interesting when to think about stillness. It seems like such a personal endeavor, and yet we are also called to love our neighbor and be, a light, salt in the world. What is that connection, between our pursuit of stillness, and then being a healing presence in a world that can be very divisive? It's more divisive than I remember. And how does that connect? How do we do that?
Great question, Molly. And I teach at a seminary and have seminarians at various levels of mental health. And, and I have to be there with them and have lunch with them. And as you're saying, be a healing presence as best one can. And St. Teresa of Lisieux, Father Hopko's favorite saint, and mine too, said that like the Israelites of old in the building of the second temple, Nehemiah was told, go up on ladders and build the second temple and lay bricks with one hand and have a sword in the other hand because the enemies are going to come up the ladder trying to kill you. She said that's a word for Nehemiah, but it's also a message for us that we need to do what we need to do. You be with your children, Cynthia, and I be with my seminarians on the one hand, and to the extent that we can, be aware of the present moment and prayer, the name of Jesus, at the same time, to the extent that we can. We can only do that sometimes. So the connection is being the healing presence to all the people God puts in front of our nose, out of this peaceful, deep place in the lake of my soul. That's the best I can do with that. That our activity is a function of the strength and directive, the guidance that Christ is giving us as he lives in our hearts. That's the really interesting part, that we really are his hands and feet on this planet. He lives in us and acts through us as he acts through everyone else, as he's acting to us right now to do his will. We are his instruments.
I think about when you say that about that deep, operating from that deep place of calm at the bottom of the lake. I notice that the times when I do make stillness a priority, and I am truly trying to access that inner stillness, I micromanage less my adult children. I'm able to let them to take a leap of faith and get out of the way and let God do the work, and even feel like my opinion's quiet, my assumption's quiet, and I don't, feel those passions inflamed in conversation. So I think that is very powerful. I totally agree.
Yes. Inside me and inside each of you and inside each of the listeners is a control freak. We all have that. We want to use your word, micromanage reality. And when we become still at the bottom of the lake of our heart, I live now, not I, but Christ lives in me, then that control freak, as you're saying, becomes less. And we can actually do less, which is the theme of your work. We do less. And that means saying no to some very good invitations and opportunities and things we could do. And that's hard. The control freak tries to get us to do too much and stay really busy. And it doesn't work.
Yes. Yes. To back up just a moment, Dr. Rossi, we're talking about meditation. Of course, Christian meditation is so different from the meditation most people think of as far as Eastern religion and emptying oneself or finding enlightenment or whatever. Before we go, can you just kind of expound a bit on why Orthodox meditation is so different from this other secular?
Cynthia, great question. Short version, I have no problem with mindfulness and Eastern meditation per se, because it really can lead in a good direction, but incomplete. Why? Bishop Callistus Ware says that our Christian meditation is personal. I am meditating with the person of Jesus. All others, mindfulness and Zen and all the other Far Eastern meditations, do not have that personal dimension. So he refers to this as a famous museum painting, we'll say by Van Gogh, and a frame. He calls those meditations the frame, and the Christian meditation the masterpiece inside the frame, the person of Jesus. That's the big difference. Him or not explicitly him. Now they may have him in some how do I say unexplicit way, but ours is explicit and personal and loving and committed with him and me, or however we say that.
Yeah. Yeah, that's what I was thinking too. And I think that I'm always so hesitant in our community here. I always refer to it as prayerful silence instead of using that word meditation, even because it has so many other connotations to it. But meditation in itself has so much study behind it, even in the secular world, about how beneficial it is to our health and our bodies. And then as Orthodox, it's helpful to our souls. I'm so glad you brought it up.
We don't measure weight loss and new ketones and effect on our health. That's not what we do it. We don't do it to become more stabilized, more healthier human beings. No, we do it because of a relationship.
Yeah.
That's beautiful. Well, Dr. Rossi, thank you so much. I mean, there's so much in here for me to reflect on and think about. It's really, like I said, this is something we really stress. It filled with less, and we've been working on this simplicity and making that a priority, like shifting our priorities so that becomes the umbrella under which we do our other work, instead of the other way around. And so this was really helpful to hear that, and inspiring to continue on with that. And we're very fortunate because we get to continue speaking with you. We are going to do a second part of this interview, in which we're going to focus on the imagination and the present moment, and that's going to air next month. So thank you in advance for that as well, and we look forward to hearing your thoughts on that.
Thank you, Dr. Rossi.
Thank the both of you very, very much. Bye-bye.
Bye. Oh, wow. That was such an amazing conversation with him. And I'd really been looking forward to that conversation specifically all month. I just have so many questions. I wanted to pick his brain about stillness because, it's something like like you said, I recently incorporated it into my life within the last year or so. And it's so tempting sometimes to say, oh, do I have time for it? It's so easy to fill it up with other things and not make that the priority. And I really appreciated his confirmation that not only, is it valuable, it is necessary, to carve out time for that stillness.
Yes, absolutely. And I know that Dr. Rossi said that the reason that we do meditation and stillness is to get closer to God and as far as spiritual life. But the health coach in me jumps from the spiritual to the physical. And knowing that studies on meditation say that even 8 minutes rewires your brain, creates new neural pathways, lowers your cortisol. I mean, it really makes the entire day better. You make better choices and you're much calmer. So the domino effect is amazing.
And I think we've even seen in our own lives and in the lives of our community that so much of the reason behind people feeling so out of control, so flustered, so anxious. A lot of that has to do with this underlying cause of a lack of stillness, of not
Yes.
making that a priority in their lives.
Yes, I think so. It's a root cause, which, interestingly enough, in our Healthy Body segment, we're going to be talking about root causes. Only this time we're going to be talking about the body. And we have Dr. Steve Heffelfinger with us today. So without further ado, let's go into our Healthy Body segment. Dr. Steve Heffelfinger is a doctor of chiropractic and a certified functional medicine practitioner. He believes in holistic, non-invasive, comfortable procedures, techniques, and therapies to help bring you to optimal health. While in school, he was introduced to applied kinesiology. He uses applied kinesiology and a blend of many other healing methods to get to the cause of your condition. He also serves as an ordained deacon in the Antiochian Orthodox Church. Welcome, Dr. Steve Heffelfinger. It's so good to have you here.
Thank you for having me, Cynthia. That's great.
It's a real pleasure. I know that when we talked before, there are so many things that we could talk about, but we narrowed it down to one root cause that it gets to the bottom of a lot of people's health issues that doesn't even cross their mind, and that is mold illness. So, Dr. Steve, when someone comes into your office and they have symptoms that make you suspect mold illness, what type of testing do you do and how do you work with your patients?
When a new patient comes in, I have a 33-step checklist I use in order to get a bigger, broader area of things to bring it down to what's going on with them specifically. And with this testing, it's like we're challenging the body to different noxious stimuli to see how they respond. And we use a muscle response test to find this out. So when it comes to mold, many times we'll find that a histamine challenge will cause problems. And then when we break that down, it sometimes ends up in mold. And the one that I find most specifically is what we call an aldehyde challenge. So aldehydes can be found in mold and in chemicals, especially perfumes and things. And so when we find a weakness there, I go on to see if there's a predictable breakdown of the immune system. And when we do that, we can confirm it by just challenging different things like mycotoxins. And when mycotoxins blow people away or make them weak, then we start pursuing the mold avenue.
Okay. And I know that in my doctor's practice, she used a urine mycotoxin test with me to see if there were mycotoxins in my urine. And that's also how we found out that my mycotoxins are gone 3 years later after working on mold for that long.
I was just saying that there's the visual contrast test with Shoemaker.
Yeah.
So that one and the urine test are great ones to screen for it also.
Yeah, they are. And it can take a while, so people just need to have patience. But if they have symptoms that their regular doctors are just saying, oh, there's nothing wrong with you, all your test results are coming back fine, but the person still has unresolved fatigue and respiratory issues. And I actually have a whole list here: blurred vision, digestive disruption, brain function, brain fog. And who doesn't complain of brain fog a lot lately,
Sure.
right? Yeah.
Right.
Headaches, ice pick headaches in the temple. I was getting those also.
Yeah.
So when you have a patient who has been diagnosed with mold illness, what is the first thing you have them do?
Well, the first thing I have them start thinking about where it could be. Most of the time it's in people's houses. And so I have them start thinking, is there a musty area? Is there a place of water damage? How long have you been in that house? Maybe previous owners have the issue. So I have them start thinking about that, and they have to investigate that themselves, whether it be hiring a professional team or even just getting these little petri dishes that you can put around the house and see if you can grow anything. That's picked up on quite a few things too.
Yeah.
So then we come up with a plan to figure out what are we going to do to get it out of the body and get their body back to healing. So there's a nutritional protocols involved, and then cleaning up the environment. Those would be the two main things I would do.
Yeah. And you definitely have to clean up your environment before you can start working on your body, or it's going to be a very expensive exercise in a lot of supplements, but you just keep reinfecting yourself every time you're home, right?
That's true.
Yeah.
And so when I'm assessing people, and one of the things I find is that there's some core issues that I like to deal with, and one of them is when you find an aldehyde issue. Most of the time, the body gets depleted in a trace mineral called molybdenum, and without molybdenum, our body cannot break down further this challenge of mold and chemicals. So we can come up with great ways to pull things out, but without that basic mechanism working, we're always trying to play catch up.
Yeah. Yeah. I really like that you're wrapping the mold in also with chemicals, because even toxic cleaning products that people are using around their homes, they can have the same effects on the body as mold, correct?
Absolutely. It seems to hit the same pathway, similar pathways.
Yeah, similar.
So
Yeah.
I talk to people about getting perfumes and scented products out and replacing that with essential oils or things that don't seem to put a chemical burden on the body.
Absolutely. It's such a common thing to read an ingredient label on any product, whether it's a candle or a cleaning product or, I don't know, body care products, and they use that term fragrance.
Right.
And fragrance can be, I heard fragrance can be up to 50,000 chemicals that the manufacturer doesn't have to list. They can just put fragrance, and those chemicals are actually formaldehydes and estrogen disruptors, and they really do a number on the body, don't they?
Yeah, there's a big toxic mess that comes with them.
Yeah, big toxic mess, but it can be cleaned up. I mean, there is a message of hope here that once you get to the root cause of what your symptoms are, you can start working to resolve everything.
Absolutely. Sometimes I find that when I'm going through the rest of the process, there are things, and maybe mold tends to set it off. We look for gene SNPs, and especially for the MTHFR issues, where your body's not breaking down folic acid well. And sometimes we can't tell if it's the mold that set off that gene SNP or if it was already there and made you susceptible to it. So many times we have to look at things like broken down B vitamins to see if they need that in order to process the toxins that come along with it.
Yes, yes. And then also glutathione production to methylate these toxins out of the body. Someone may need to go on NAC or a precursor to glutathione to start allowing their detoxification pathways to work correctly, correct?
Absolutely.
Yeah, yeah. Well, thank you for being on today. I know that you see a lot of patients and a lot of people who come to you who've been to many other doctors and they were told that things were just fine. They didn't know what all of these unexplained symptoms are for, and you're very good at getting to the bottom of things. And I really appreciate you coming on today and talking about one of the reasons people are sick.
Thank you for having me.
Cynthia, that was very interesting, very eye-opening for me. I've never had any real issue or any understanding of mold, of how that can, I mean, I know black mold sounds bad. That sounds like something you shouldn't have.
Right.
But I don't understand the lingering effects that someone might experience with mold. And then I was also struck by how, like, if you have these kind of mysterious symptoms, you kind of have to be your own advocate in finding answers. That just because you go to one doctor's appointment doesn't mean, they say, oh, nothing's wrong, that you just have to kind of accept that again, that you might have to do a little bit of legwork to get a proper diagnosis. Did you find that to be true?
I did, exactly. So, doctors aren't taught about mold illness or mycotoxin toxicity necessarily in med school. That's not what they see every day, and it's not really what they're looking for. And I would say, from my recollection, that when people finally reach a doctor who's able to diagnose their true root cause, and in this case, we're talking mold, people have typically been to at least 16 to 23 other doctors,
Wow.
including specialists, before they found their way to that doctor who found out that it was mold. And this really changed my life. We weren't kidding when we were saying that you really have to test your home first before you start treating your own body. I remember when I was working with my doctor, she said, okay, first thing we need to do is test your home. And I said, oh, Dr. Ellen, I have a new home. We built it ourselves. We used a local builder who's a very good builder. I'm sure we don't have mold in our home. She said, Cynthia, you'd be surprised. So we did the testing, and sure enough, down in our unfinished basement, there was a hairline crack in the foundation. And underneath the insulation, there was a piece of mold that was about the size of a quarter. And
Wow.
it infected all 3 stories of our home.
Oh
So
my
first we
goodness.
had to eradicate that. Yep, we were lucky because some people find so much mold in their home, and everything is infected from their curtains to their clothing to everything. They just have to pick up and leave, not even pack a bag.
Wow.
And there's so many stories like this. I even have clients who have had to do this and just leave their life behind and start fresh somewhere else. It infects their kids. A lot of kids who are diagnosed with autism and a lot of ADD cases, a lot of these stem back to mold exposure. And with 50% of the population having an MTHFR genetic polymorphism, which means that they can't detox their bodies as well as other people can, that mold can actually hang out in your body from the time you were a little kid.
Wow.
And never go away. Yeah. So this is serious. It's definitely, like you said, you have to be your own advocate and follow these rabbit trails because they could really lead somewhere.
Very interesting. Yeah. Thank you for bringing him on today.
Yeah, you're welcome. You're welcome. He's wonderful. So for our next segment, we're going into the productive life segment, and we're going to talk about our question for the day.
So today's question, or is maybe more of a statement, is one that I think a lot of us can relate to and a lot of us struggle with. And the question is, compared to other people, it seems like I just am not able to do as much. How do we deal with comparisons? How do we get past that really way we sabotage our productivity? So let's talk about that today, Cynthia. So, Cynthia, that question, it really hits home for me because, it makes me I can think of a few key chapters of my life where I allowed comparisons, I think, to really sabotage my own productivity. Mm-hmm. The 3 that really stand out to me, one was in college. I had these wonderful friends, all very bright, and we would study together for the same exams, put the same amount of time in, but when it came to testing, like the multiple choice, the Scantron, all of that, every time they would get A's and B's and I would be in the C range or D sometimes, and I would just be like so frustrated, like why, just negative self-talk, why are you so stupid? Why aren't you as bright? And really compare myself to other people's academic achievements. Like why, not even realizing that like put a blue book in front of me with an essay question, I could write all day, but I didn't test well on a Scantron, but I didn't hear that. All I heard was you are not smart. Yeah. And then later, I know when I became a new mom, that was also a real struggle with me. And people know that from my Close to Home book, I talk about it, that I would look at the way other people parented, other parenting styles, and leave feeling like I'm inadequate as a mother. And then I did the same thing even within my faith. I think spiritually that we've all experienced that, like compare yourself to someone who seems to have it more together. Their Posca basket, maybe this isn't so ragtag like yours is. Theirs is beautiful with the flowers and the candle and all the traditional things. And so you look around and feel like, oh, I'm just bad at this. I'm just bad at being Orthodox. And so let's talk about that because, I feel like, we have learned, and we've talked about this a lot, in helping our members find their gifts and their purpose, why comparisons is such a sneaky tool, I think the devil uses to keep us really from bearing fruit. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, I think, first of all, whenever we compare ourselves to another person, we're not comparing ourselves to a real person. We're comparing ourselves to a perception of what we think that person is. And so often there's just one facet that we see, or 2 facets. We're not seeing everything. So it's not even a real person we're comparing ourselves to. So I wanted to say that first.
Great point.
Thank you. Like you, I grew up always looking at myself through the eyes of other people. So, I'm not pretty enough. I'm not smart enough. I'm not good enough. My family isn't that great. All these things that I'm thinking other people are looking at me and judging. And again, what that does is it stifles who God created you to be. You're not able to develop your talents and your gifts. You're not able to appreciate and love yourself as the person that God created you to be and wanted you to evolve to be. You're actually stunting your growth by constantly looking at other people and comparing yourselves to them. We're all on our own journey, and everybody is at a different part of their journey and a different, I have in my mind right now a river with tributaries going out of it. We're all on our own little different tributaries, and we may not even be heading in the same direction. So all of our lives are completely different. And, that adage, compare and despair, that's exactly what's going to happen if you keep comparing yourself to the facet of the person that you think you want to be like.
Yeah, that's so powerful. I think that's so true that we make assumptions about other people, and like we do compare ourselves to this made up version of them. And what happens so often, like you said, is we can't develop our talents. Like we are here on earth for a purpose. We were given a specific temperament, personality, and gifts. And unless we are authentic to who God made us to be, we're going to rob not only ourselves of that experience of developing those gifts and living out our purpose. We're going to take that experience. We're going to take that gift away from others around us.
Yes.
Who are not going to benefit from the unique perspectives we're going to have, or the unique things we're going to contribute. It takes we need people with big picture ideas and creatives, and we also need people who are realists and people who are organized and detail oriented. It takes all kinds, and if we're all trying to be the same person, that body of Christ is weakened.
Yes,
And
absolutely.
we can't serve others as with joy and gratitude for who we are. And I think that's a sad thing about comparisons. That's a really sad byproduct of comparison, is that we not only rob ourselves of joy, but those around us.
Exactly. So for the person who said that they are comparing themselves to others, and because of that, they're just not as productive, this is the reason. It's because you're tying your own hands behind your back. Let yourself shine. Take time to be still and be in the presence of God so that He can show you yourself. And I love one of the things Dr. Rossi had said. He said that the only time that you really meet yourself is when you're in silence before God. And I just thought that was beautiful. And that's what we need to continue to do. Just figure out who we are in God's eyes, and we're going to be perfect.
Yeah. And a couple practical things, Cynthia, I think, just to help ourselves out. Limit that social media use. I think that's a big cause of comparisons. When we always have our eyes at everyone else around us, that's only going to exasperate that feeling of comparison. So, pull it in. Like, you don't need to be on social media so much. I think that inner stillness, like you said, is so important, because when we're quiet and we're connecting with God, we can tune into what makes us unique in a better way. And we can listen to His guidance and begin to really appreciate the workmanship of ourselves through His eyes. So we're seeing ourselves through His eyes instead of our own eyes, which can be very negative. So those are some just good tips. Do you have any other tips, you think?
I think that we need to embrace our differences too. Like, we're never less than someone else. We're just different than someone else. And, God created us all different, and we just need to embrace that and give ourselves grace, because obviously we're all striving to be better at things, better people, better mothers, better, and that's okay to strive, but we can't judge ourselves from that lens.
Yeah, very good.
Yeah. Well, it's time to say goodbye, but we have many ways that people can join us between now and the next show. So why don't we start talking about some of the ways that they can join us? So the first way to keep in touch with us is not something that's going to be happening right away. It isn't until October 25th. But if you caught our interview with Matushka Sherry last month on juicing, she and her husband, Father John Kalbaum, are going to be doing a juicing and raw foods retreat in Arizona. And Molly and I are going to be there, and a bunch of Holistic Christian Life and Filled with Less community. We would really love for you to join us. There are only 4 rooms left. And June 1st, it goes up $100. So if you're even thinking about joining us, jump over to juiceladysherry.com and sign up for the retreat. We really want as many people in our community there as possible.
Another way you can keep in touch with us is through our 6 Weeks to Sanity online course. This course is now available at your convenience. Previously, it was only offered about 3 times a year, but we've opened it up for you to be able to join whenever you would like. And in this course, you will find modules on developing a peaceful mindset, time management, decluttering your home, developing a healthy body, boundaries and relationships, and fostering your faith. It's a great way to begin your journey to simplicity and living with intention. If you go to our website, you can use the code FWLLOVE for your 10% discount.
And then, of course, there's our Living Every Day with Sacred Simplicity membership. It is a group of women, a community comprised of women all over the world, and we're becoming fast friends. We're all up-leveling our lives. Last month, we got into finding our purpose with Father John Kalbaum as a guest for our live session. This month, we're getting into depth about hobbies and how important hobbies are in your life and how to make time for them. We would love for you to join us in the membership.
Another fun way to keep in touch with us is through our Filled with Less book club. So we have been meeting for about 4 months, and it has been such a neat way to make new friends, to expand our community, and to have some really great thought-provoking and encouraging conversations and discussions. This month, we are featuring the book How to Be a Sinner by Dr. Peter Boteniff. We cannot wait to hear your thoughts on it. So please go to our website, filledwithless.com, and scroll down till you find our book club offerings, and you can register there to join us on May 22nd at 12 noon Central Standard Time.
So we hope you join us in one way or another. And of course, everything we just talked about, aside from the retreat, you can go to filledwithless.com and just make sure you scroll down and you'll see the opportunity to join us for all of these different offerings. And we look forward to seeing you. So with that, it's time to say goodbye. Right, Molly?
Yes, it's time to wrap it up. Again, went too quickly as always, but a lot of wonderful things to reflect on this next month. And we look forward to seeing you in June.
Yes. So take care. Goodbye. We're praying for you.